Well, hello. Today is Sunday, July 18th, and this is Life Matters. Let's talk about it. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Life Matters with Michelle. I am your host, Michele Irby Johnson. You know, I'm always so very excited when we have an opportunity to come into your homes, come into your places of business, wherever you may be, and to talk about things that matter in our lives. Once again, I want to just thank everybody who is tuning in, whether they're watching by video or whether they're watching by live stream radio. We want to thank you once again for tuning in to Life Matters. And as always, we want to remind you, if you have questions for our very special guests, that you post them in the chat so that we can field them over to our guest on today. Remember, this is where we talk about all things that matter in our lives, in our community, things that are very relevant to us. Let us welcome today our very special guest, someone who's very special to me. This is Miss Djuna Hunter. Hello, sis.
Hey there, how's it going?
I'm well. And for those of you who do not know, I'm going to introduce her. She is my oldest sister. We are a year and 17 days apart. I don't know how many hours and how many minutes and how many seconds, but she is, in fact, my birth sister. But I always tell her I'm in charge. She'll probably get mad at me, but I'm in charge because, you know, I'm a protector. I'm a protector. But this is my real life sister, Djuna Hunter. My maiden name is Hunter. And so the Hunters, we don't play. Amen.
Amen.
So I'm going to introduce her to you. This is the bio that's from the book, Sissy. So I hope this is okay for me to read.
Sure.
It says Djuna Yvette Hunter is a single mother of 5, born in Washington, D.C. and raised in Southern Maryland. She's a survivor of developmental trauma disorder and domestic violence. And she continues to work through the healing process of complex post-traumatic stress disorder, trauma bonding, emotional, verbal, mental, spiritual, financial, and covert narcissistic abuse, as well as abandonment, fear, a product of trauma. This is going to be good, y'all. Djuna also suffers from high functioning anxiety and clinical depression. Through decades of counseling, it was not until the past few years that she was able to understand who she is as a person and how to take her power back, to stand up and not be afraid. She learned that she was more than a wife, more than a mom, more than a sister, more than a friend, that she is someone to be valued. I'm going to say that again. She is someone to be valued, someone who has a voice and someone whose opinion certainly does matter. During this journey called life, she has come to love herself unconditionally and understands that God has been with her a long time. Her journey has brought her to a place of discovering happiness, joy, laughter, and peace. She is looking forward to her new beginnings. She's an advocate for domestic violence victims and survivors, and she looks forward to mentoring women, both young and old, from various walks of life. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am talking to my birth sister, my natural sister, my biological sister, Djuna Hunter. I call her Sissy, and I also call her D. And I want to welcome you, beautiful, to the show. How are you, my dear?
I am doing wonderful. Just hearing all of that it's surreal. Just hearing all of that is just like, I've come a long way.
Yes, yes, yes. And you certainly are beautiful. And when I read her bio, and I oftentimes think about the times when I didn't hear her laugh and the times when I didn't see her smile and I didn't see the beauty that she is now. Not saying I didn't think she was beautiful, but she was so veiled, if you will, in her abusive relationship that I didn't find anything about until 2 years ago. I was around her all this time and had no idea that this is what she was dealing with. And so, Sissy, today we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about living with a narcissist. And so I need you all to be in prayer with my sister as she uncovers, as she becomes transparent, as she shares her life story with you all. I'm sure it's going to be an emotional discussion, but if you all will pray in the background, you all can help her to get through this. And I'm going to be right here with you, honey, just helping you through this. And so, again, we are talking about living with a narcissist. So, Sissy, if you can tell us, what is a narcissist? Because everybody doesn't really know what that means.
Well, first of all, everybody has some characteristics of being a narcissist. We each can be selfish at times, or take pictures of ourselves, or post a selfie here and there or whatever, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a narcissist. There are two different types of narcissists, and I'm going to go back and forth at my notes, because I will say off that I'm not a medical doctor or a psychiatrist. I don't have professional experience, but I have life experience.
Mm-hmm.
There's the covert narcissist, and basically they crave a lot of attention, and they brag incessantly about their their professional accomplishments, their personal accomplishments, and they don't really regard others outside of that. They are really, really into themselves, to the point of not really caring about anyone else other than themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They can come off as being very shy, very reserved, and they can hide their sense of entitlement, and they have a grandiose type of facade. They have a facade. They wear a mask. Um, um, but this form of narcissism you don't see up front, and that is kind of why I didn't see it for a very, very long time. Um, it manifests itself along the way. You start to figure out something's different, something's off.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the covert narcissist. They typically express a more passive or indirect manner, and it's conveyed within a condescending attitude. They're very defensive. They're very hostile at times, very insincere, and they have a passive aggressive attitude.
Mm.
Then you have the overt narcissist. They can outwardly show that they're very smart, very talented, very charismatic. When they speak with others, they don't normally ask questions about the other person. They don't really make an effort to get to know the other person, because it's really all about them. They refrain from expressing any feelings that may portray them as being flawed or weak, because you can't know any weaknesses that they may have. And then they are very often offended and defensive along any type of conversation that you're having with them. And most times, I won't say most, but there are times where they might tell like an offensive joke, or at a party or some place that makes them the center of attention. They've got to be the center of attention no matter what. Everything, the spotlight has always got to be on them, constantly.
Yes. One of our viewers just said their image means everything to them.
Everything. And so I'll interject there, is that I found myself constantly, and even now as I do this live, you want to protect them. You don't want anyone to think bad of them, and even at the expense of your own self. I want to still protect. I want to protect my children, first of all, because, there's still things they don't know, but I still want to protect his character, even though I had to go through a lot of things with him. And even in different scenarios, different places, I would always still wear a smile because I didn't want anyone to think bad of this person, if that makes sense.
It does. It does.
Their image is everything. They don't want anyone to think bad of them at all.
But that there, if I can say this, that is part of what we would call coercive control. It's not something that's tangible. It's not something that you can put a finger on. It's not something that somebody can measure. But coercive control are the things that are done undercover. It's the undercurrent. It's the way that they look at you. It's the way that they sneer at you. It's the way that they control you without putting their hands on you. It could be manipulation. It can be intimidation. It can be isolation. It can be gaslighting. It can be, like you said, you're wearing the mask to protect them. But at the same time, the backside of it is coercive control, because they know if you do something outside of the norm in public and embarrass them, you're going to get in trouble. That was my thing when I was in an abusive relationship, that I was going to get in trouble. And oftentimes I did. And so that is the coercive control is more akin to the person who is the covert narcissist, because everything's done undercover, under control. They can put their hand on your knee under the table and squeeze it, and nobody knows. And you're just smiling, not knowing that they're digging their nails in your skin, And so, yeah, that is, it's amazing. A comment says control makes them feel superior because they are insecure. Did you find that to be true?
Very much so. Very, 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 very insecure. And it was a lot of work trying to deal with that, because it becomes a lot of work for me, for the person that is in the abusive relationship, because they're very high maintenance. Very, 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 very high maintenance, because you have to you're walking on eggshells constantly, because you're trying not to rock the boat. You're trying to keep the peace in the home. You're trying to keep the peace in the relationship. And because it's all about them, it's
you find yourself picking up the pieces that before they fall.
Exactly. It's a balancing act.
But it's really imbalanced, because you as the victim are constantly making sure the glass doesn't drop, while at the same time maintaining your inner peace and your health and your mindset and all of those things. So they ultimately are the ones holding everything, but you're still juggling everything that they're dropping in your weight. Is that what it feels like?
Right. And all the while thinking, and like I said, I only found this out a few years ago, thinking that I was the problem. I need to be a better wife. I need to be better mother. What's going on? What am I doing wrong? But all the while, it wasn't me. It was this abusive behavior that I was undergoing. And come to find out that not only was I dealing with covert narcissism, I was dealing with overt. So I was dealing with both types of narcissism. And so I'm dealing with emotional abuse, mental abuse, verbal abuse, spiritual, financial. And then you find out you're under narcissistic abuse at the
same time
for 30 some years.
That is crazy.
And
go ahead, honey.
And I'm still trying to wrap my head around that was what was going on for the past 30 years. Now I'm trying to unpack all of it.
We have a question from the audience: is how do you protect yourself from the dangerous and destructive ways of a narcissist? Now, I know you're not a doctor, but you lived through it. What were some of your coping mechanisms that helped you to maintain your sanity, for lack of a better term, for 30 years?
Well, I did a lot of journaling because I didn't have an outside source. Nobody knew. I dealt with it on my own, but with God's help. I journaled, I prayed a lot, I searched the scriptures a lot, and I talked to God a lot. Like my sister said, she didn't even know. Nobody knew. But I hope through this live that I'm going to be able to help other people, because I know what it's like to not have anybody, to share, not to share because there's nothing to share. You know what I'm saying? To have to be a support for someone else, because
Absolutely.
it is no joke to go through this alone. I'm telling you, when I tell you I was suicidal, I was suicidal. And I would wish that on no one. And so, reach out to me. But I had to journal. I mean, my journals actually were, I would try to hide them, but they would be found and read. And, nothing was mine. Nothing was secret, sacred to me. But I would pray and cry out to God. And worship was another lifeline for me. I'm a worshiper. So I would, put on worship songs and just cry out to God and just ask him to just be with me. And when I tell you he is faithful.
Come on.
When I tell you he is faithful, he has gotten me through so many things. And here I am, I have my own home now. I just bought my own home a year ago, and he has set me free.
Yes.
And I just thank him, So those were my coping mechanisms. Journaling, staying in the Word of God. I didn't run from God. I ran to him, and he was with me. I'm going to tell you what, God was with me the whole time, because I couldn't go to anybody else. I didn't want to burden anybody else with what I was going through,
And that's the sad part. Oftentimes, people in abusive relationships, they suffer in silence. And like I said, you're my sister, and I wasn't aware of it. I could be around you and your husband and your kids and your pets, and everything looked normal.
Yeah.
But when you suffer in silence, sometimes you don't say anything because people will never believe it, because you cannot measure it. You can't measure coercive control. You can't measure abuse that can't be seen. And so for the outsider, most people are like, well, I don't see it. I don't see any bruises. And I teach this in my domestic violence class. You don't have to see bruises to know that you're abused. There's a comment that comes from one of our viewers. It says, the best way to overcome a narcissist is to rise above and take your power back. They feed on making others feel less. And the same person says, you are not a victim. You're victorious because of Christ. Continue plugging in and praying. The Lord is healing you from the inside out. And that is so true.
Amen.
And I get it. I didn't have support either. And I know this is not about me, but I just want to speak this openly to every person who is dealing with any type of abusive relationship. You don't have to be hit.
That's right.
In order to be abused.
Right.
But I'm saying this openly, that I didn't have a support. I mean, you didn't know I was being beaten. You didn't know I was being raped. You didn't know what I was going through, because they make you feel bad for wanting to tell. They make you feel bad for wanting help. They make you feel bad for wanting to survive. And so, I applaud you for your strength. I applaud you for, being strong enough to come on here. Your brother-in-law says, do not run from God, run to him. And that's exactly what you did.
Amen.
So, in living with a narcissist, how did you um, protect the children? How did you shield them from what you were dealing with?
Well, I prayed a lot. I Back then, I would protect them from as much as I could, the behavior, any type of, I tried to protect them from any type of, disagreements or any outward display of frustration or anger on his part. I tried to keep the peace. I was the peacemaker. Um, they were little, back then. And back then, of course, I didn't really know what was going on. I thought I just needed to work harder. I needed to be a better mom, a better wife. And so I just spent a lot of time with them doing things. I was a stay-at-home mom for 12 years. And so that's another thing, I thought I was doing something. I mean, it kind of was my idea, I want to be a stay-at-home mom. I want to take care of my kids and, raise them up in the Bible and things like that. But I, I didn't feel isolated because it was something I wanted to do. You know what I mean? Um, but the longer we went into the marriage, it was more like I was suffocated because we were always together. And now I kind of know why. Because they had a better handle on where I was, what I was doing, those kinds of things. But to protect my kids, I I just find that I just kind of prayed a lot with them, and I found my solace and my peace in them. Actually, I would in the night go and just kind of cuddle with them because that was my way of protecting them. I guess
Mm,
it's just being with them instead of being in my bedroom or whatever. Just
yeah.
if that
They,
makes
yeah, it makes perfect sense. You don't have to ask if it makes perfect
that
sense.
was my comfort outside of Jesus, was just to be with my kids and you know to I don't know, just so I would to be away from that at night, because there were times I'd be up in the night, hours in the night, but I would just find my peace and comfort just being in their bedroom or praying with them or whatever. So
Okay. Mm. And that's amazing because even though you were finding solace in them, you were also it was a means of escape so
yeah.
that you didn't have to be in their presence. A question is coming. It says narcissists lack empathy
um,
even when they want attention. How is that?
the only the only thing that comes to my mind right now, and this may come across harsh, but this is the one thing that comes to my mind right now, is when my dad passed away. He was sick in the hospital,
Hmm.
and he was on life support. And although we were separated at the time, I literally had to grab my ex's arms and have them to put them around me to comfort me during that time.
Yeah, I
That is
remember
lack.
that.
That is a lack of empathy. I don't care where you are in someone's life. When they're losing a loved one, you comfort them. And I felt no comfort at all.
I remember because I was there and I saw that and I was like,
And that was unbelievable to me.
yeah,
No matter how you feel about me or whatever, I'm going to be there for you, And so, yes, they lack empathy, and it's sad. I pray for them. I really do. I pray for them.
wow. So are there any who is most prevalent to become a narcissist? Is it more men or more women?
It's more of men. Men are more common to be known as narcissists. Um, and I have that down here in my notes. And then it's roughly 1% of the general population, but mostly men are narcissists. I didn't get the breakdown of why, but there's, everybody, if you look back to your childhood, there's a reason why we do the things we do and why we are the way we are. Um, and I don't want to pinpoint why someone is the way they are, but I know our childhood has a lot to do with our upbringing. Um, and I'm just going to leave that there.
Well, I will say this, since you won't say it. Narcissism can be a learned behavior. So if you see it emulated, if you see it acted out, then you then become a byproduct of what you've lived through, a byproduct of what you've experienced. And so if that individual, just like if you are, um, just like if you are in an abusive relationship, that perpetrator saw abuse somewhere, whether they saw it in their own, between their own parents or something. My abuser saw his father beat his mother on a regular basis. And so it made it more acceptable, if you will, for him to beat me. And so, yeah, narcissism is a learned behavior, just like any other type of behavior. Racism is learned. Everything that people see as children, because you're so young and you're impressionable, it's easy for you to become what you see, right? So let me ask you this. Are there any particular we have a statement from our audience that says exactly, it is a learned behavior and it could also be a mental health disorder, narcissistic personality disorder. And I was about to say that doctor, I want to call her Dr. Smith, but she's not a doctor yet, but I'm calling it, I'm speaking into existence. So Sissy, if you can unmute yourself. Again, I accidentally muted you, and answer that question. Can you talk about narcissistic personality disorder? My goodness.
Yes. Well, I was going to get to, there's another form of narcissism, which is called malignant narcissism. And that can present in different ways as well. And it kind of borderlines on with the same traits as narcissistic personality disorder. So they kind of have the similar traits. So yes, it can be a disorder. And so if you don't mind, I'd like to just kind of run down the list of what narcissistic personality disorder is. So you can have malignant narcissism, and it can present in many ways. There's no set trait, but the NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, and malignant narcissism, they both can tend to have some of the same traits. And so NPD is in the DSM-5 book, so you can be diagnosed as to having NPD. It's grandiose fantasies and behaviors such as preoccupation with thoughts of personal success, power and attractiveness or sex appeal, little or no empathy for other people's emotions or feelings, significant need for attention, admiration, and recognition, an inflated sense of self-importance, such as tendency to exaggerate your personal talent or achievements, a belief in personal specialness or superiority, a sense of entitlement, a tendency to take advantage of others or exploit people for personal gain, arrogant or conceited behavior and attitudes, a tendency to envy others and believe others envy them. People with NPD often have trouble dealing with change. They may feel depressed or humiliated when they are slighted. They have a hard time with insecurity and vulnerability and react angrily when others don't seem to regard them with the admiration that they feel they need or deserve. This condition also tends to involve difficulty managing their emotions and their behavioral responses to stress. I also wanted to mention that in the covert narcissistic person, they also have difficulties in relationships. And I found that very interesting. And so
Yeah.
when I found out about the narcissist in my studies of psychology, I had to stop and reread the definition again. And I also had to call my best friend and ask, read the definition, because I couldn't believe. I don't want to diagnose anybody with anything, but when I read it, it scared me.
Mm.
It literally scared me. And I thought, oh, dear God, this is what I'm living with. This isn't about me. This is someone that I'm living with. And then I thought, how am I going to get out of this? Because this is scary. And then you think, then you have to say to yourself, then I had to say to myself, I'm being abused. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea until 2017. And it wasn't until 2018 that I could even say those words out of my mouth. And then I'm in therapy and I have to unpack all of the damage emotionally and mentally. All of the words, that I have to sometimes replay in my head that I'm not. I have to remember the words that the things that God has said about me and who I am, and not the negative words. It's talking 31 years.
That's a lot to unpack, a lot to it's a lot to unravel, because when you think about the foundation that was set, and it's slow, I call it a slow poison, a slow drip. And so it started out slow, and then, just like any type of abuse, because of the coercive control, it starts out covert. It starts out as an undercurrent. And before you realize you're in it, you're already in it too deep. And so trying to come out of it is more difficult. And so to hear you say that you experienced this for 31 years, that is, first of all, it's remarkable. Second of all, the fact that you have to unpack and undo everything that was done in your psyche, everything that was said to you that wasn't true, the gaslighting that made you feel like, what you said wasn't important, who you were wasn't important, what you did was never right. That's a lot to unpack. That's like trying to fill the Grand Canyon up. That's a lot. And so, we have a comment from our audience that says it is scary. Their behavior is harsh and unpredictable. Leaving a narcissistic relationship takes a lot of strategizing and prayer, because they can become violent when losing control. And that's in any form of abuse. When they know you're trying to leave, that's why it takes about 7 times for a person to leave an abusive relationship, because there's a drawback for various reasons, and there's nothing for judgment, but there's a drawback that makes people go back. Why would she stay? Why would she return? There are various reasons, and we can't get into that right now. But Sissy, if you can unmute yourself again and help us to understand, there was something that you wrote in the book. My sister was, she's one of the co-authors in my book called In Recovery, Rising from the Ruins. And there was something that you wrote in the book that really stuck out to me when you talked about being in the bathroom. Can you, if you're ready to talk about it, if you can just give us a snippet of what that looked like to you, living in that.
You mean about the time where you're in the bathroom, like having to have a conversation and not able to leave? Is that?
Yeah. Basically being trapped.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like being trapped anywhere. I don't like being in a situation where I can't get out. There were times where they'd want to have a conversation, and you'd be followed to a room and the door would be shut and you weren't leaving until the conversation was over. And yeah, that was very, very hard.
It kind of puts you in the mindset of being a caged animal.
Yeah, it's, I don't like, that happened several times, and it's not fun to be, in your own bathroom and not able to leave until they let you out of the bathroom. So
that is very difficult. I was trying to find it so I can read it. But I think you've echoed it pretty well. There's a question that says, did you deal with the narcissist on a psychopathic or sociopathic level, and did it get that serious? Did he come across as crazy?
For sure.
Yeah. Can you give us a couple of examples other than shutting you in a bathroom and not letting you out?
Well, when it's just crazy that, why you got to follow me in the bathroom? Why can't I go to the bathroom by myself? Why, if I don't feel like having a conversation at the moment, do you have to follow me into the bathroom? Why can't you give me a minute and let me, I had no personal space, no privacy, lots of accusations. I need to write another book, to be honest.
And I'm here for you, honey. I'm here to help you do that.
There's just a lot more to it. But yeah, there's a lot of more in-depth things that I had to deal with. And then to be made to be the bad guy to my children is another thing. Yeah.
So now that you are out, and I hear crackling, so I'm gonna mute you while I ask the question.
I don't know why it's doing that. I think because I dropped my phone.
Okay, hold on one second. So now that you are out and you have discovered and uncovered that you were in a narcissistic abuse relationship, walk us through. Now, I read a little bit in your bio some of the things that you are contending with in terms of the covert narcissistic abuse, the abandonment, and all of those different things. Can you tell us a little bit about trauma bonding as it relates to this relationship with your ex-husband? Unmute yourself and share your story.
So trauma bonding is very interesting, and I can say I still have a little bit of that now.
Yeah.
I had a lot of it when he first left. But an example of that is, for instance, if I were to go to the store, my mind was still connected to what he would say to me. What time are you coming back? How long are you going to be? And if I was literally thinking in my mind, okay, I have to be back in 20 minutes. And I would be hurrying in my head wherever I was going. Like I could hear him in my head, and so I still had this attachment to him.
This was after you were separated.
Yes. After he'd left, I still had in my head for a very, very long time, what time are you coming back? Where are you going? I still, even today, think that there's a recording in my car of my conversations. Still today, 2.5 years later. So my mind is still attached to things that he has said to me. But the main thing is, things like, what time are you coming home? How long are you going to be? Where are you going? So it's that control thing. And so I don't know, some of you may know I drove to New York back in April. And that was a big step for me. To be able to get in my car and drive somewhere by myself with my girls and not have to tell anybody where I was going, when I would be back. I didn't even have that in my head. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was huge.
Yeah.
Huge, to drive to New York and come and spend time with my girls for the weekend, not have to, punch a clock. But that's trauma bonding, is when you're attached to them in some type of fashion where you continually hear the voices in your head of your abuser. And sometimes I still hear it, but it's not as frequent. But for the first 1.5 or 2, like, I constantly, and it's almost like I'm going to get in trouble. Like, if I'm not back in time, or if I'm not back when I say I'm going to be back, or like, even now my girls will say, well, when are you going to be back? And I'm like, I don't know. Cause I'm not getting pulled back into that pattern, I'll be back when I get back. Like, I have to change my mindset of that role, of that pattern of telling somebody what time I'm going to be back, because I'm not going there. You know what I mean? I have to retrain my thinking, because it was so ingrained in having to tell somebody what time I was going to be back, how long I was going to be. And it was, it was like I was a child, like, I was being treated like a child. I had no voice. I had no value. And I was a very strong woman before then, very, very independent, very, very strong.
Yeah.
But I was brought down to less than, and I'm getting my power back. I've gotten my strength back. And I want to share, and I want to help other people. So
thank you so much for sharing. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking to Djuna Hunter, who is my real life sister. She's my biological sister, and she is sharing her life, her story about living with a narcissist. And for those of you who have been through any form of abuse, whether it's narcissistic, whether it's, the typical abuses that we deal with, emotional, mental, spiritual, financial, sexual, pets, whatever the case may be, we have to understand when we're dealing with people who have escaped this type of situation, that there is trauma. There's something that happens to the trauma triangle. There's something that happens in the mind. And this is a time and opportunity for us to be prayerful for survivors like my sister, survivors like myself, survivors like you. And so understanding that it's processed to come out from under an abuser. It's processed to peel back all of the layers of degradation that has been done to a person down through the years. And she experienced this for 31 years, ladies and gentlemen, 31 years. And Sissy, I want to tell you how very proud I am of you for standing up, for taking back your voice, for taking back your power, for understanding that you have a voice in this world. You have a voice for other survivors, and that you have always been a beautiful woman. You have always been a strong, hunters in the family, period. If you were a hunter, people knew, don't mess with the hunters, because they will fight you. Because people ask the same question to me. How can you of all people let a man beat up on you? I said, well, first of all, you had to understand he was 6'4", almost 6'5". I was 5'2", and he always hit me from behind first. So it's not that I let him do anything. So let's just make that very clear. Victims don't let the abusers do anything to them. It's not a permissive thing. It's not something we release the reins into their hands, but it's something that they do. They pounce on us with their wiles. And so again, my sister Djuna Hunter is talking about living with the narcissist. And one of our viewers says, thank you for being transparent. You are helping other women in abusive relationships to stand up and speak out, because abuse is not okay. Sissy, just wanted to ask you one more thing in terms of the children, if it's okay. How are they relating to you now? Because you've been out of the relationship, what, 2.5 years? How are they relating to you now as mom, understanding what you went through, or do they understand? Please unmute yourself.
Well, I think our relationship is pretty, I wouldn't say solid. I mean, I think everything is good. I don't think they all fully know what I went through. I've shared with my adult children a lot about the past history because they lived it mostly, but they were younger. One thing they don't understand is I get a lot of, you weren't there for me emotionally. And I wish they could understand I wasn't there for myself emotionally, because I barely survived what I went through. I did the best I could trying to live in an emotionally abusive marriage and raise them. And so I hope that they will be able to see one day and understand what I went through with their dad. It's not my job to, or my goal isn't to, like, bash their father to them, but I hope one day that they will truly see what I went through emotionally, so they can see and understand how I was unable to be there for them in that way. We do all get along just fine right now. I want everyone to know that I prayed and asked God, how could I get out of the situation? And my ex-husband did end up leaving. And so that was the way that I became free of the relationship, because you better know I was trying to figure out how to get out of it. And God made a way for that because he saw what I was going through. And so I do thank God for that. And so, but I just pray for those who are trying to get out. It may not have been as easy as the way I got out, but just pray to God and ask him to help you, and you'll be able to reach out to me or others for help. But my littles, I do have 2 younger girls that were adopted later on in life through the situation, and unfortunately they had to see the brunt, the latter years of everything, and they're doing fine. So God, by his grace and mercy, we're all getting through it together, and we're in a good place. I really think we are all in a good place right now. So,
well, thank you so much. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking to Djuna Hunter, my biological sister, who is talking about living with a narcissist. She is sharing her story, being transparent, in an effort to help those of you who are watching and or listening to understand what it means to be living with a narcissist. Narcissism is a form of abuse. Sometimes it's covert, sometimes it's overt, sometimes it's malignant, but it's all about power and control and coercive control. If you feel like you want someone to talk to, and you need someone to talk to who has walked in your shoes, living with a narcissist, she says that you can reach out to her at her email called newbeginnings0831@yahoo.com. That is newbeginnings0831@yahoo.com. She would certainly love to speak with you. And she's starting a support group for women who have been in narcissistic relationships. And we can only help people if we've walked in it. So just like me, I help women in abusive relationships because I was in abused relationship. She is doing the same. So once again, ladies, if you find yourself currently in an abusive relationship with a narcissist, she has started a new group called New Beginnings, and you can send her an email, newbeginnings0831@yahoo.com. She would love to walk you through it, pray you through it, talk you through it, because we both know what it's like not to have support. We both know what it's like to feel like you are on an island by yourself, surrounded by barbed wire with, ravenous wolves hanging on the outside that look just like whoever your abuser is. And so, Sissy, if you can give us any last words before we do our announcements, unmute yourself. Any final thoughts for the people?
Well, I just want to thank God for this opportunity to share a little bit of my story. I thank you for those who joined us today. Like Michele said, I am starting a support group with my girlfriend Julie, and it's called New Beginnings Discovery and Healing Support Group. You can email us if you're interested. Email me for support. And I co-authored the book, Rising from the Ruins. If you're interested in getting a copy, feel free to email me, and I will be happy to get you a copy of that and give you information there on how to get a copy. Again, I just thank God for where he's brought me from and brought me to. He is faithful, and just thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you so much, Sissy. I thank you, everybody, for tuning into Grace Point. And I want to remind each and every one of you that we do have the book, In Recovery, Rising from the Ruins. You can certainly pick up a copy of the book. You can order it. You can see it on our screen. If you can't see it, then it's $15 shipping and handling. If you'd like to get a copy from my sister Djuna, you can certainly reach out to her. You can send yahoo.com, or you can send me an email at michele@im-mij.com, and I'll make sure that she gets the credit. Again, we released this book, In Recovery, Rising from the Ruins. It's about stories of restoration and resilience, and God knows we have been restored and we are resilient. Amen. And so also, I love working with authors and I love doing books. We are now currently looking for military co-authors. If you have served in the military, if you are currently serving in the military, whether you are active, whether you're Guard, Reserve, all branches of service, even if you are a military spouse, we are looking for you to become a co-author in the new book called Boots and Beyond. We're talking about stories of trials, tragedy, triumph, and transitions. Again, if you are in the military, active duty or retired military spouse, I'm looking for you to become a co-author for the new anthology project entitled Boots and Beyond, Stories of Trials, Tragedy, Triumph, and Transition. A new book as well called My Bald is Beautiful. I'm seeking beautiful bald co-authors. So if you have lost your hair for any reason, if you look anything like me, no hair, we are bald, we are beautiful, we are bold, we are courageous. We want to hear your story. You want to post your story, whether you lost your hair through cancer, whether you lost it through alopecia, medications that went wrong, stress, it does not matter. If you are a BBB, that's what I call us, bald, bold, and beautiful sisters. We are looking for co-authors for my new book that's going to be released in December called My Bald is Beautiful. If that is you, ma'am, we'd love to hear from you. Yes, 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 we'd love to hear from you. All right. If you want to be a guest on the show, you can certainly email me at Michele-Mij. Let me, am I showing it? I don't know what I'm doing here. There it is. To be a guest on the show, visit www.im-mij.com. You can also listen to the show every Friday at 4 o'clock p.m. on sensationalsoundsradio.net. That is sensationalsoundsradio.net every Friday at 4 o'clock p.m. You can go back and watch this particular segment on my YouTube channel, which is Life Matters with Michele TV Official. Don't forget to like, share, and to subscribe. Once again, my YouTube channel is Life Matters with Michele TV Official. Like, share, and subscribe. Once again, I am looking for guests for November and December. We are currently in our third season. And so I'm looking for guests to talk about anything that is directly, related to our community, because, I love to talk about things that affect us. Right. All right. So once again, thank you for my beautiful sister joining me, Djuna Hunter. She has been discussing living with the narcissist. Ladies, again, if you are in an abusive relationship, particularly with the narcissist, she is starting a brand new support group called New Beginnings. Give that to us again, Sissy, so I can. I don't want to mess it up. Unmute yourself.
New Beginnings 0831@yahoo.com.
What's the name of the group?
New Beginnings Discovery and Healing Support Group.
That's what it was. New Beginnings Discovery and Healing work group, support group. Again, her email is newbeginnings0831@yahoo.com. New Beginnings 0831@yahoo.com. Sissy, thank you again so much for being a part of this show. For all of our viewers, all of our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to Life Matters, because Life Matters is where we talk about what matters to you and me. Talk to you again next week, and have a blessed week. Bye-bye.